Hello and welcome to Experimental Lab, the daily show with JK. I'm JK, your host, and I'm joined by my team. Walter is also here. Okay, good morning, Walter, and good morning, Amar. Good
Yeah,
to
good
see you
morning,
both.
JK.
Good morning.
Probably I am kind of hearing my own voice. Can you guys hear me clearly? Is it audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, I was going to do the mic check. That's fine. So we are going to have just the conversation today. No fooling around or playing any videos as such. So my point is like, how do we? Oh my goodness! The minute I say that, like we are getting a call. Is it for you, Amar?
Yeah, it is for net. I'm going to visit the call. Just a minute. Hello. Hello. It's showing that connecting. One. No, not connecting. It's still it's showing connecting. Okay, I'm canceling the call. Okay, JK, you can continue.
All right. No worries. So we might be having this kind of trouble back and forth by the recruiters. The reason is like they are doing their job, so we can't do anything about it. And probably either we have to put the calls in do not disturb mode or not log into the system. So that way, like we won't get it like during our show. So that is one thing. And my question here, right, in terms of experiment, like we are hitting the holiday season and also the next week, we might not have much activity to do with. So the question remains for me is to have the conversation on how do we resolve various issues that we are talking about. So let's start with Walter. Walter, like you can go first with your experience.
What particular issues are we
In
referring?
terms of this experiment that we are doing with the recruiters.
No, I mean I don't think there's any way to solve the issues. Though some of the recruiters are just not the politest and don't listen. I don't think there's any way to um, solve that, but other than tell them talking to other people. Uh, but I mean that seems to be the biggest issue, them not reading their own emails or them not um, being polite about what you say your schedule is. I mean, that seems to be the only issue there. It would be nice to um, try to gather all the remote opportunities and get those because those would be probably the easiest to integrate into directly without having to negotiate with someone. I do see some of those coming up. It'd be nice to see more of those, but I mean, I don't think there's anything that we could do to fix anything else. I mean, the way it looks right now for me is I'm still getting emails. I mean, I just answered a couple already, and some of them are brand new. So I mean, I might still have some activity during the the Christmas season, which is fine. I'll be near my computer. So I mean, I don't really see there's many things that we can fix on that front. They're gonna it's a whole systematic problem of how they approach everything. None of it's really that efficient, um, or doesn't come across as professional as far as how everything is really done on their end. But I mean, I
Yeah,
think that's
just
just
wait, Walter.
Yeah, and I think that's just I mean, I think that's just the way it is, really. I don't really think we can fix that right now.
So, yeah, help me, Walter, right? So the intent for experiment and also doing this as a social thing and creating awareness, right? So do you think that this will have a ripple effect in the recruitment industry? And what you are saying is like, uh, certainly, right? We don't have control them, and we cannot obviously tell them like what to do and what not to do. But bringing in awareness and educating people and shaming them in the public domain, right? This is what they are doing it. That will, my question is like, would that make the companies to rethink their strategy and give them the instruction not to do certain things?
I
Like,
think so.
for example,
I think so because it's so inefficiently bad. Like I've never seen any process like this where they ask for you all this information by Gmail and none of it's through like professional forms. And like that one person who asked me for my full social security number, I'm like, that's ridiculous. And there's some of the information they ask and how they ask for it and how they ask you to fill things out that are literally in the resume that he's like, just look at that and you'll see that, but you're making me fill it out again. It's kind of like the whole thing people complain about with job applications that ask you to fill out everything of your full resume and you can't copy and paste it. Like that's also very inefficient, but this is at like a larger scale, like a larger scale because, well, I guess in my case, since I'm talking to literally about 125 different recruiters, and then they kind of all want me to do the same exact thing over and over again. So, I mean, I just think it's so inefficient that it would just embarrass companies into changing because it is really bad, I think.
yeah. So in a way, that is one of my ideas, right? So if we shame them in the public and it becomes known to the recruiters that, okay, so we are being recorded and we have been uh, told not to do this, then let's stop it, right? At least some of it, like what we did was like before, was talking to the recruiters on the show and asking them like, is it legal, or all asking all those questions, right? Make them feel uncomfortable, and some of them they drop off. And I think even Amar dropped off, or probably he is taking the call in the background, not to get into this in between the show, like, and disrupting the flow that we are trying to convey the message here. Uh, so Amar, if you are still with us, right? So let us plan for that, like when we want to take the call again, and then like how do we want like to address these issues? That way, like we will get a clear picture on what we are doing and how we can promote it like properly. Whether it's the show with the recruiters and having the call with them, that way like we can ask these questions to them as well. Why do they ask what they ask, and what is their intention, what is their purpose? Because I'm still not convinced that, as Walter was mentioning, that like you are right, many things can be resolved over in the email itself, and their basic duty is like to collect that information and submit it to their vendors or to their client, and they are going to do the interview. So that's basically what the screening process is. So you can simplify it, and obviously they can avoid many things. That is one thing I was wondering, like even AI can do these things. In the future, companies might employ AIs to automate these processes and say like, okay, we don't need humans to do these things. And it looks ridiculous for me because it is so mechanical and a monotonous job over and over, repeating the same thing. And the surprise part was like, Walter, I want to hear from you. You can see that like in the last 2 week itself, right? From your experience, you would have seen from the same company, 10 different recruiters are reaching out for either the same position or for with a different
Mhm.
position.
Ye-
And every time they ask the same information, right?
Yep. And I mean that's kind of the most annoying part because I had this experience yesterday. Some recruiter wanted to keep calling me every 5 minutes, and I asked him, like, what information do you need? He needed 2 pieces of information that I could have emailed with him in 2 minutes, and I did. It's like, why are you calling me when I'm doing something when I told you not to do that, and all you needed was 2 pieces of information? And it's just like, I mean, it's so embarrassing and inefficient. It's like they honestly don't really need to call you at all, ever. Going through the process for 2 weeks now, they there's absolutely positively no reason for them to call. All I mean, they can actually, if they took the time, they could have forms filled out that can send you to a website that you fill in all that information and you send it to them. And that's all they would need. And they don't do that. They instead decide to hound you. I mean, this sort of is kind of like a real job search for me. But if it was one where I absolutely positively 100% needed the money immediately, this would be one of the most frustrating things ever. I mean, it still is frustrating because they hound you and hound you and hound you for things that if they just listened to you and sent an email, they would have quickly. But instead, they decide to not listen and just bug you for things. It's like what, like like I, if I was a recruiter, it'd be like, shouldn't I would be thinking, what's the quickest way I could do this and get someone submitted? But they try to just bother you. Say, it's only going to be 2 minutes. It's only going to be 2 minutes. It's only going to be 2 minutes. It's like you're wasting time by doing that. Just send the email and I'll respond to the email. And so it's like, and then sometimes when they send you over the information, it's stuff they've already seen in the resume because that's how they get the number to call me, but they don't fill it in themselves. They want you to refill it in. So it's like, what is the recruiter actually doing? So I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of ranting there because it's just yeah, I mean, I've had probably over 125 unique email chains, and I've probably sent like at least 10 emails to like 80 of them. So I mean, it's been a lot of emails, and it's just like some of the same stuff is repeated over and over again. It's just like you can make this so much easier on yourself and not bug me and like constantly for this same stuff.
That is still a puzzle, right? So why even the companies engage these kind of inefficient activities, right? So by having these many number of recruiters, again, they are going to pay them, right? So nobody is going to do this kind of job without getting paid. And what is the return on investment for them? And how do they justify? I still don't, it's a puzzle for me. I'm trying to understand, right? Hundreds of recruiters in the same company, uh, maybe I'm missing something here.
I mean,
Help me out here.
I'm pretty sure I've gotten the same job offer from 5 different recruiters. I won't say names or anything, but I'm pretty sure it's been the same job offer from 5 recruiters from the same company, like literally the same recruitment company. I keep seeing their name. And it's like, oh, you want this same thing again because I haven't talked to you guys 4 or 5 times about this already. Um, and it's just to me, it's just they make their own job significantly harder. I think, and I don't know why.
Uh,
Mm.
yeah. So the problem here, right? So the story of uh, not just the victims, but then the people who are doing this, right? How do we convey this, like in a way that like it is justified for them, like to do this? And I want like that to be questioned in our show. Ask them what is their story behind, like why do they do this, and what is the logic behind, right? For us, like it doesn't look like a sensible thing. Even if you are a business owner and you employ these many number of recruiters and pay them, and what is the end result they are going to get you in? and how do you make money out of this? So that is the most surprising part. Like I'm still trying to figure it out. As I said, like we might not, we might be blindsided on some of the things that they are doing it, and how do they, because I know that like the recruiters mentioned that like it's a one time, if they uh, place a candidate for big companies, $1 billion companies like TCS, Cognizant, and all those things, they will get uh, uh, I'm not sure, like 2,000 or 3,000, whatever, like the one-time bonus. And apart from it, like if it is a pay rate, it's a bill rate uh, on C2C, they get like for every hour the person continues to work on the project, they get around probably $3 to $5. I'm not sure what is the profit margin. So that will kind of give them $500 per month, something like that. So that is kind of a big money for them. That may be the reason like they are doing it, but I'm still not convinced. Like, how do they like even engage with so many recruiters? Like, because with one other company like IDC Technology that we had like even contract and we completely did a project with them, they had like around 2,000 recruiters or something like that in their company. So the volume is so high. So I was so surprised, like, how can you even pay those many number of recruiters? So
Well, my thing is they obviously don't keep a database of who they're talking with, because within the matter of like 7, 8, 9 days, being contacted by the same company for the same as that position by like 5 different recruiters means they're not communicating, or not, they're not putting things in a database, or not saying this person has been contacted for this job or that job. So I mean, technically, it wouldn't be impossible for me to get 2 jobs for the same company. It'd be impossible to work that many hours. I mean, unless they send me 2 laptops and I just stay logged in the 2 laptops at the same time. I mean, it's possible, but the way they are treating it, they make it seem like that would be a thing that's possible, because they're not keeping their own records. And it's just, I think it's kind of funny, because one of the recruiters literally was like, this has to be done today. And I literally, while on the phone with them, got an email from another recruiter from the same company about the same job, basically asking me the same information. I was like, oh, that's cute. That has to be done today, because, your own recruiter from your same companies contacted me about the same thing. So there's no hurry about anything they're doing. They just want to place people and get them submitted, and they're trying to falsely hurry you so they can get as many people submitted as possible. It's just all inefficient nonsense, really, on their end, I think.
yeah, Amar, you're back again. So what was the update? Were you able to talk to the recruiter, and did you happen to be questioned? What is that like, currently you are engaged with?
Yeah, I received the call from the recruiter I got. I can share the details with our audience. See here. He phoned me and requested me again and again that please share your DL copy. Without DL copy, he's not submit my profile for the client. It's mandatory to share DL copy. So after sending the mail, he phoned me several times, and after that, I talked with him 3 minutes. So, and again, he is telling that I told him I can share my DL copy right now, but when I'll be selected, that's time I can share. But he still is saying that you can hide your details. See here.
Yeah, this week again, who is the client for this, right? Let's go through that. Like, so this has to be brought to the attention, right? So this is what like we are trying to do this. So the company will say one thing, and General Motors like will not ask, just like Walter was mentioning, right? They will not ask directly your social security number, full social, and all, even before offering you a job. Even after offering a job, nobody has any business to ask for your full social or anything like for that matter. And this company is kind of, why even for this person, he doesn't need your ID. And that's why like he doesn't care, right? He is saying like to hide it. So who is the company here? Again,
Recruiter company is Beamer, Peter
yeah,
here.
recruit. Okay, that's fine. So that's what, like this is a clear recruiting agency company, right? So they have nothing to do with this. And what about the client, the end client, or is there like any middle layer? Okay, Centene is the client.
Yeah, right.
And did they mention that like it is through any vendor?
No, and they will offer rate is very low. No issue, but is asking me to provide DL copy. So that is the issue here. Why I will share
Okay,
the DL copy. Also, he asked me over the phone that my last 4 digit of my SSN. But as I am doing this experiment more than 1 year, nobody asked me to share my full DL. But as Walter mentioned that someone asked him to share his full DL, I mean SSN number, right?
yeah, that is the point, right? The point of discussion, what we are trying to do here. It's also in terms of the end client, right? That is why, like, I just want to know, like, who actually ask these things, right? So whether it is an ID proof or social, in all that, somebody is playing the game here, and we cannot put the blame on these recruiters or these recruiting companies as well, because they have no intention to collect these things. That is what uh, I
Somebody's
would say,
asking
like,
for it.
yeah, somebody is asking for it, right? So that is where, like, we we just put the blame on the person who's asking, but it's not the person who's asking needs it, because they are forced to do this. It's just like forced labor, and that is one thing, like, how I see this, right? So they are also in this trap as a victim, but they don't know that. And even in human trafficking ring, like, it's popularly mentioned that, like, trafficker or victims turn into traffickers because they get to know this process and how they can avoid the law enforcement, and how, because they learn from the tricks of the trade from the traffickers, and they just start doing that with their own network, and they become a victim turned traffickers. That's what, like, I heard from many of the organizations that we have been talking to. So in this case, these companies, like the smaller mushrooming companies, are taught by the big fish, right? So the bigger companies, unless they stop these hiring process and practices, and mainly try to avoid the legal complication, they are going with this contracting business. So I just want that, like, to be uh, discussed with an attorney. That will be more efficient for us, like, to look into the legal aspect of why it continues. Some of them, like, we can make assumptions, but then still it's not justified, right? So in terms of big names, big brands, for them, they don't want these things to come out in the public, and anything that is focused on by the media and it has been made as a story, then it's a damage control they have to do, like, right? So always they will try to avoid. uh, so the next focus, like, wanted, like, us to do is on, in terms of how these interview process happens, right? So Walter, you have not gone to that stage right now, so you may not be able to fully understand, and also hopefully in the next couple of weeks, like, we'll get there. But my understanding is like, is there a connection between these companies? By doing this process, the interviews are going to be much more lenient or easy for candidates who are going through this process to get the job. What do you think? What is your thoughts?
I would assume so, because I mean, what other purpose would they have? Because I mean, I've been asked a couple of times to put certain things in my resume to make sure I get an interview by some people, and they wouldn't directly say why, but that's what they were saying to do. Just put this in so we can get you an interview. So, I mean, I'm guessing that's kind of what their purpose is, to make sure that you go through the process. I mean, maybe. I mean, I kind of want to follow up on whoever that the individual was said the company was asking for a first full social. Maybe that's the rationale by the company asking for the full social, is to go ahead and like, okay, you already gave us all this information. Let's just make this as painless as possible and get you hired. That's still a really bad reason for asking for a full social over Gmail, which is very not protected and which has been hacked multiple times. But I mean, that could be a reason. I mean, it's not illegal to ask for that. It's not exactly ethical. But I mean, I imagine it should be an easier interview process if you're going through a third party like this. They should get you prepared for that and be like, this is what they're going to ask, because they technically are working for the company and it's in their best interest to get you hired so they can make more money. So I would assume it would be easier.
Yeah, you are right on dot on that. So there is kind of a, link and connection between uh, hiring managers or people who are working in the client projects. They make this connection and also hire the resources which is coming through their network and through these kind of companies, and they just prep you up what kind of questions you can expect and how you have to present. And that's mostly what the big companies do, right? Even with the TCS managers and Cognizant and other, they just do the screening interviews where even during the interview, they ask all these questions like if you are on H1B or green card, how did you got that? So those are a very personal question. They do ask those things, try to make a connection and see that like you will be the right fit to work with them, with the team. And then all the remaining things are just played out accordingly, right? So
What
the end.
I'm just curious, why is that? Why is the whole "how did you get your H-1B or green card" relevant to the job at all, as long as it's legal? Like, why does that even remotely matter?
Yes, absolutely right. So you are right that, but we just don't know, right? Why they do certain things. We are still puzzled on why do they need those things. They are trying to make connection and trying to understand if the person is uh, kind of not faking it, I would say, right? So for example, if I'm going to say like I'm on H1B, right, they will get to know that like from my again, that's a mandatory thing. They ask us just like a DL and the last four of social. With the H1B copy, the employers have to sign a contract. So in that case, they will know the validity of your H1B period. So that will reveal that like how long have you been in US. You cannot be on H1B for more than 6 years. So that will clearly indicate that like you have not more than 6 years of experience in US. Unless you are on green card process and you are on the backlog, even that they will find it out with those validity period. It's a public record. Anyone can go and search for it with the Department of Labor, like where you are saying that like you're working. So with that, like anyone can find your information on the public database, right? So that reveals people who are on H1B cannot lie. If they lie, like they will get caught, right? So that is where like they want to know that like whether you are on H1B or green card. And even that, like that's a limit they are putting it, like you have to not to have more than 10 years of experience. If you are going to say like 15 years, then probably you might have got your green card. Or that is where like the surprise part, to answer your question. So how did you get the green card? So they want to know that. The reason is, if it is through family based, then they cannot find out when do you got it. But if it is through an employer, again with your H1B follow up, that petition shows up on the public record, like when you entered the US, and with your I-94, all those things, they can track it. That is the reason like they are asking those things. I am pretty sure like it is illegal to ask those things, but still that is how like they try to make the connection and find out, and it is for their benefit. They will say like, okay, we know that like whether the person is telling the truth, they can also lie. So we don't have any option to verify that in a legal manner. The legal uh, position is right now, the doors are closed for us like to validate a candidate even before hiring. If you're going to say like we are discriminating and doing all these things, you cannot do it, then I have left with only these options by asking the candidate directly during the screening process. So that is where this is happening, and we can continue to talk about this. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean that's a it's definitely a interesting process. I mean, it just doesn't feel. I mean, it feels like if we're getting pressed. I mean that's obviously they're not going to ask me, "Oh, how did you become a U.S. citizen?" I was like, "I was born here." I mean, they're not going to start pressing me. Are you sure you were born here? But they're going to press someone who wasn't born here on how did you get this? How did you do this? How did you know? It's like this is if it's legal and you can verify that it's legal. None of the other questions matter or should be brought up like at all. Um, that's starting to get into gray areas of discrimination during hiring practices because that shouldn't be a topic of discussion during a job interview. It's like, can you do the job or can you not do the job? As long as you can verify it's all legal. So I don't know why they would start pressing you about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly it,
Mm.
right? So my question, I want to share a story on that on a later time, Walter. So because we are running out of time. So even if anyone, right, who says like they are a US citizen, to your point, how do you validate that, right? So they just do they ask your birth certificate to show that like whether you are a US citizen or US passport? No, they don't do that, right? So they are very careful with US citizens. That's for sure. That I have learned, and we can talk about that in the coming days. And let's sign off for today. Thank you, Amar. Thank you, Walter. Bye for now.
Well,